Hey, everybody, and welcome to our deep dive.
Ooh, a deep dive.
Yeah, into Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki.
That bright yellow one?
Yeah, have you seen this thing? I mean, it's everywhere.
It's everywhere. You see it in airports. You see it in
Bookstores?
bookstores, yeah, and online.
All over online. So
All the things.
we got a ton of stuff to go through today about it. Reviews, summaries, critiques.
Yeah, we're not just going to, give you the Cliff Notes version.
Spark notes.
Spark Notes!
We're going to really get into, why is this book so popular?
Right.
Why is it controversial? What can you actually get out of this book?
Yeah.
Even if you're not...
Like a financial guru.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So to get started, one of the most interesting things about this book is that it really focuses on these two father figures in Kiyosaki's life. So
like his actual dad.
His dad, who he calls Poor Dad.
Had a PhD.
Yeah, but struggled financially.
Why we struggled with money.
Yeah, and then you've got Rich Dad,
Uh-huh.
who's his friend's father who dropped out of hye school.
But became like this...
Super successful entrepreneur.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
this really stark contrast that immediately draws you in.
Yeah, and it's relatable too.
Totally.
Because
we all...
well-known people who are super educated,
Mm-hmm.
but don't necessarily have their finances in order.
Right. Or maybe someone who didn't go the traditional route,
Right.
but they're killing it in business.
Yeah.
So it makes you think something to this.
Yeah. Is there a different way of thinking about money?
Mm-hmm.
So then that brings us to this idea of financial literacy being
Super key.
really important.
Yeah.
It's not just about getting a paycheck.
It's about understanding money,
Yeah, how money actually works.
how it flows, how
Yeah.
it grows.
Yeah, so that brings us to this key idea that Kiyosaki talks about, which is assets versus liabilities.
Yeah, and he really learned this from Rich Dad, this idea that you should focus on assets. Things that put money in your pocket.
What are some examples of?
So think about rental properties, stocks, businesses.
Okay, so things that generate income.
Exactly. And then on the flip side, you want to minimize liabilities.
Right.
Things that take money out.
Like what?
So debt unnecessary, spending that fancy car that's costing you an arm and a leg.
Oh, so basically
Yeah, it's about making your money work for you.
Right.
Instead of you always working for money.
Okay, so even if you're totally new to personal finance,
Right.
this is a concept I feel like anyone can kind of,
You can grasp it.
understand and apply.
It's a really good starting point.
Right.
For sure.
Okay, so speaking of this idea of making your money work for you,
Mm-hmm.
the book talks a lot about breaking free from the rat race.
Yeah.
This idea of working just to pay bills.
Just to make ends meet.
Yeah. And never really feeling like you have control over your time.
Like you're stuck on this treadmill.
And so Kiyosaki kind of taps into that, I think, really common desire that people have to have financial freedom.
Right. Freedom and control over their lives.
To be able to choose how you spend your time.
Absolutely.
So he argues that the key is building passive income.
So that's money you earn without actively working.
So is that
Think of it like investments.
Okay.
Or businesses that generate income even when you're not actively involved. That's the goal.
So that's what he says is the key to escaping the rat race.
Yeah. It's about building that freedom so you can choose how you spend your time.
Okay, now here's the thing though, right? The book is super big on mindset.
Oh, yeah.
Which is great, but sometimes it feels a little vague on the how.
Yeah, it's it gets you all pumped up. But then I was like, wait a minute.
How do I actually do this?
Where's the instruction manual?
Right, yeah, exactly. So it's you have the motivation, but maybe not all the tools.
Right. It's like having all the ingredients for a cake, but no recipe.
Yeah, and this is where I think a deep dive like this is helpful.
Totally, because we can unpack those ideas.
Yeah.
Figure out what they mean for you in a practical way.
Okay, so another thing that I think is really interesting about this book, and also kind of controversial,
Oh, yeah.
is his focus on real estate.
He loves real estate.
He loves real estate as the path to wealth.
The be-all, end-all.
He's buy property, rent it out.
Yeah, make millions.
Yeah, and it sounds so easy when he says it.
Oh, totally. But is it really that simple?
Come on.
Real estate can be a great way to build wealth,
Okay.
but it's not a guaranteed win.
Right.
You need money up front.
Yeah,
The market can change.
that's true.
There are risks involved.
What are some risks that people might not think about when they're...
Oh, well, imagine you buy this rental property,
Okay.
right? You're all excited about it.
Yeah, passive income?
Passive income coming in, but then suddenly the roof needs replacing.
Oh, no.
Or you can't find any tenants.
Uh,
And suddenly it's not so passive anymore.
It's light.
It's a lot of work.
So it's not just like this magical solution.
No.
You have to be really smart about it.
You have to do your due diligence.
Right.
You have to understand the market.
Okay.
Be prepared for the unexpected.
And you have to be okay with a certain level of risk.
Exactly. It's not for everyone.
Okay, so I think we should talk about the elephant in the room.
Okay, what's that?
The whole rich dad mystery.
Ooh.
Like, some people question if he even existed. Like,
Right.
was this guy real?
It's definitely been one of the biggest criticisms of the book.
Okay.
You know, people questioning its accuracy.
Yeah.
Kiyosaki himself has admitted that he uses creative storytelling.
Okay.
It's not necessarily a straight-up memoir.
Okay, so maybe Rich Dad was a composite character.
It's possible,
Okay.
but even if Rich Dad wasn't a real person,
Right.
I think the lessons about money that he represents still have value.
Okay, so it's like, think of it like a fable.
Yeah.
Right? Like, the story might be made up, but the moral of the story
The message.
can still teach you something.
Exactly.
Okay, so it's more about the principles and the ideas.
Than the literal truth of the story.
Right. Okay, so then on top of that, there are some critics who point out some potential issues with the book's advice.
Yeah, like what kind of issues?
Well, one of the things they say is that it kind of oversimplifies things.
Yeah, he does make things sound really easy.
Yeah, like he explains complex topics in a very straightforward way.
Which can be helpful.
Right, especially for beginners.
But sometimes it can lead to overlooking important details or getting misleading advice.
So you're saying we should take it all with a grain of salt?
I think it's always a good idea to get different perspectives.
Okay.
Do your own research.
Right.
And don't just rely on one source for all your financial wisdom.
Don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Exactly.
Okay. And then another criticism is that the book can be a bit repetitive.
Yeah, he does tell a lot of stories.
Like a lot of personal anecdotes.
Which some people love.
Right. Some people find those really engaging.
But others might crave more concrete strategies.
Like, tell me what to do.
Right.
Not just what happened to you.
Exactly.
Okay. And then there's the potential for bias, too, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like Kiyosaki is really into entrepreneurship.
And real estate.
Yeah, those are his things.
Those are his babies.
But those aren't the only ways to build wealth.
Not at all.
Yes.
So there are plenty of other paths.
Right.
That might be a better fit for some people.
Like maybe you love your job and you're really good at it.
You don't have to quit and start a business.
Yeah. Or maybe you're more interested in investing in like index funds or something.
Exactly.
So it's not a one-size-fits-all approach.
Definitely not.
Okay, so after hearing all of this,
Yeah.
is Rich Dad, Poor Dad even worth reading?
That's a good question.
I mean, we've talked about some good stuff, some not so good stuff.
It's a mixed bag for sure.
Yeah. So what's the verdict?
I think it depends on what you're looking for.
Okay.
If you're brand new to personal finance and you're looking for a book that will challenge your thinking, to get you excited about money, then I think it's a great place to start.
Okay.
But don't stop there.
Right.
Keep learning, keep exploring.
Don't make this your only.
Yeah. It's a good first step,
Yeah.
but not the whole journey.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
All right. So I think that's a good place to.
To take a little pause.
Yeah, we're going to take a quick break.
Paycheck right down.
And when we come back, we'll continue our deep dive into Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Welcome back to our deep dive into Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Okay, so before the break, we were talking about.
Some of the strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah.
And controversies around the book.
Yeah. Yeah.
One thing that really stood out to me is how Kiyosaki challenges those traditional ideas about education.
Right. He doesn't just say, like, go to school, get good grades, get a good job.
He's like, there's more to it than that.
Yeah. And it's not just about formal education. It's about, like, constantly learning.
Lifelong learning.
Yeah. And growing your financial knowledge.
Like being curious about money, how it works.
Yeah.
How to make it work for you.
So it's about being proactive.
Yeah. Taking control.
Not just waiting for things to happen.
Yeah. Don't just sit there and expect things to fall into your lap.
Right. Take charge.
You got to go out there and make it happen.
Okay. Now, this is kind of interesting. He also talks a lot about risk.
He loves risk.
He's like,
He embraces it.
yeah, don't be afraid to take risks.
Calculated risks, of course.
Yeah.
Not just being reckless.
Right. But he says playing it safe can actually be riskier in the long run.
Because you're limiting your potential growth.
Right. It's like if you never step outside your comfort zone.
You might miss out on those big opportunities.
Yeah, you'll never know what you're capable of.
Exactly. So it's about finding that balance.
Yeah.
Between being cautious and being bold.
So don't jump out of a plane without a parachute.
Right.
But also Don't let fear keep you on the ground forever.
Love that analogy.
And then he talks about learning from your mistakes, too.
Oh, yeah. He sees setbacks as opportunities.
To
Yeah.
learn and grow.
It's that whole growth mindset thing.
Exactly.
Instead of beating yourself up over a mistake.
Learn from it.
Yeah. What can I learn from this? How can I do better next time?
That's a much more empowering way to approach challenges.
Absolutely. All right. So let's talk about another big idea in the book.
Okay, hit me.
This concept of paying yourself first.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Have you heard of this?
I have. It's all about prioritizing your financial well-being.
Okay, so what does that actually look like in practice?
So basically, before you pay your bills,
Before you buy anything else,
you put money aside.
for savings and investments.
Exactly.
Interesting. So it's like you're making your financial future a non-negotiable.
It's like paying your future self.
Right. Instead of waiting to see what's left over at the end of the month.
You make it a priority.
Like putting on your own oxygen mask on a plane before helping others.
That's a great way to put it.
Take care of yourself first.
And Kiyosaki argues that this one habit can make a huge difference. Okay, so it's not just about how much you earn. It's about how you manage what you have.
It's about being smart with your money.
Yeah.
It
Okay, so
is.
now let's get into something that I think is really fascinating.
Okay, let's hear it.
The whole mindset piece.
Ooh, yes.
He talks a lot about beliefs, about money.
And how they can either help or hurt your financial progress.
It's like your mindset can either be your best friend.
Or your worst enemy.
Yeah. So, for example, if you have negative thoughts about money.
Like, I'll never be rich, or money is the root of all evil.
Yeah, or money is bad.
Those beliefs can actually sabotage you.
It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Exactly. If you don't believe you can be successful with money,
Yeah.
you might unconsciously make choices that confirm that belief.
Right. Like if you think rich people are greedy, you might avoid doing things that could help you build wealth.
Because you don't want to be seen as greedy.
Yeah. Or if you think money's hard to come by.
You might not even try to save or invest.
Right. Because what's the point?
Exactly. So Kiyosaki encourages us to examine those beliefs.
Yeah.
See if there are any negative thoughts holding us back.
And then try to replace them with more positive and empowering beliefs.
It's about rewiring your brain
I like that.
to think about money in a more abundant and positive way.
See possibilities instead of limitations.
Yeah, it's like shifting from a scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset.
Okay, I love that. Now let's talk about something else that I think is really helpful in the book.
Okay, what's that?
His cash flow quadrant.
Ooh, yeah, that's a classic.
Have you heard of this?
I have. It's a great way to understand the different ways people make money.
Okay, break it down for me.
All right, so there are 4 quadrants.
Okay.
E quadrant stands for employee.
Okay, so people who work for someone else.
Get a paycheck.
Pretty straightforward.
Yep.
What's next?
Then there's S for self-employed or small business owner.
Okay.
So these are folks who work for themselves, but they often still trade their time for money.
Okay, so they're their own boss, but they're still kind of tied to their work.
Exactly. Think of a freelancer or someone who owns a small shop.
Got it.
Then we have B for business owner.
Okay, so these are people who...
Own systems or businesses that generate income even when they're not actively working.
So their money is working for them even while they're sleeping.
That's the dream, right?
That is the dream. Okay, and then what's the last one?
I for investor.
Okay, so these are the people who are making their money through investments.
Stocks, bonds, real estate.
Their money is doing the work.
Exactly.
So you've got employees, self-employed folks, business owners, and investors.
It's like a spectrum of financial freedom.
Moving from trading your time for money to having your money work for you.
Exactly. And Kiyosaki argues that moving from the E and S quadrants to the B and I quadrants is the path to financial freedom.
So it's about building assets that generate income,
That work for you.
not just working for a paycheck.
It's about creating a life where you have more choices.
Right, you're not trapped.
You're not stuck in that rat race.
So it's like a roadmap to help you figure out where you are and where you want to go.
Exactly. It encourages you to ask yourself, am I building a job or am I building a business?
Am I working for money or is my money working for me?
Those are powerful questions.
Yeah, it's all about shifting your perspective.
From feeling stuck to creating a life of freedom and choice.
Okay, so even though Rich Dad, Poor Dad has its flaws
Definitely.
and some controversial points,
For sure.
I think that's part of what makes it so interesting.
It sparks conversations.
It makes you think.
It challenges the status quo.
It's thought-provoking.
It encourages us to question things.
Yeah, and to create a life on our own terms.
Exactly.
All right, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
But before we wrap up, I have a question for you.
Okay, I'm all ears.
If you could ask Kiyosaki one question about his book, what would it be?
Oh, that's a tough one. But I think I'd ask him, knowing what you know now, what's the one piece of advice you wish you'd put in Rich Dad, Poor Dad?
Ooh, that's good.
After all these years, all the conversations and debates around the book, I'm
Yeah.
sure his perspective has evolved.
Right. Like, what does he see as the most important piece of the puzzle now?
Exactly.
That's a great question.
I think our listeners would love to hear that answer.
Me too. And I think it just shows that learning about money and building wealth, it's a journey.
It's ongoing. There's
Yeah.
no finish line.
Right. It's not like you read one book and then you're done.
Exactly. It's about constantly learning.
Yeah. Adapting and growing as you go.
So no matter where you are in your financial journey,
Right.
there's always room to grow.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay. So as we wrap up our deep dive into Rich Dad, Poor Dad,
Yeah.
let's recap some key takeaways for our listeners.
Okay. Let's do it.
What are the big things to remember?
All right. So first and foremost, financial education is key.
Yes, it's an investment, not an expense.
Absolutely. Make learning about money a priority.
And don't be afraid to challenge those traditional ideas about wealth and success.
Think outside the box.
Yeah. And remember, assets versus liabilities.
Yes. Focus on building those assets that put money in your pocket.
And minimize those liabilities that drain your resources.
Exactly.
We also talked about embracing calculated risk.
Don't let fear hold you back.
Yeah, do your research, make informed decisions.
But be bold.
Yeah, and remember, failure is part of the process.
It's how we learn and grow.
So don't be afraid to make mistakes.
And then there's that key habit. Pay yourself first.
Make saving and investing a top priority.
Before you spend on anything else.
Set yourself up for a strong financial future.
And finally, that mindset piece.
Cultivate a positive attitude about money.
Believing yourself and your ability to achieve financial success.
It's all about taking action, being proactive, and building a solid foundation for a bright financial future.
You got it.
Awesome. Well, that wraps up our deep dive into Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
It's been a pleasure diving deep with you.
Likewise, we hope you found this exploration helpful and inspiring.
We had a lot of fun talking about it.
If you want to learn more, remember to check out the link to the book in the episode description.
And if you enjoyed this deep dive,
Consider supporting our channel.
your support helps us keep making these in-depth discussions.
Thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you on our next deep dive adventure.